Welcome to the Capital News. I am your host, Alex Kreitis. Today is April 23rd, 2019. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope everyone out there is doing well today. A few stories we're going to discuss today has to do with an update to the NXIVM case. If you remember, we discussed this, I think it was, maybe a few weeks ago already. This was a story about sex trafficking, allegedly, but it seems to be the case because we do have a handful of people pleading guilty to this. And we were talking about an actress from the television show Smallville pleading guilty. And then there was the Seagram, the alcohol company Seagram's, the heiress, Claire Bronfman, who was also involved in this quote-unquote business, this organization to help people. A self-help program basically is how it was sold to the public. And it's been around for quite a while. But Claire Bronfman, during our previous discussion, she was going to plead not guilty and go to court and try her odds with the jury. Well, it now seems that she is going to plead guilty to a couple charges and serve a minimum of 27 months or potentially a maximum of 25 years. So we'll see what happens with that, but that's just a brief update as to what's going on. The founder of NXIVM, Mr. Keith Raniere, he is still going to try his odds in court. I don't think it's going to set up well for him. I'm not going to go into all of the details of everything, but it was sort of the whole slave and master thing. I mean, it's not a pretty picture. And again, especially to those who may be joining for the first time or weren't aware of some of the discussions we've been having on the Capital News regarding human trafficking and sex trafficking, the reason we bring it up here is, one, it is news. It doesn't get a lot of attention. Two, it's just an evil and despicable act that shouldn't happen anywhere, definitely not in the United States of America, but it is. And also because you have to read in between the lines when it comes to what President Donald Trump has been saying, and this all ties in with the border wall regarding the Mexican border, because it wasn't just about stopping illegal immigration. It's not just what the president mentioned, nor should it be. It's also about drugs. We have an opioid crisis. We have a drug crisis in this country. Is that ever really discussed? No, it's not. But the numbers are staggering. Those are outrageous. I mean, if people really did a deep dive, and we're going to do that here because the numbers are shocking. It shocks the conscience of what is going on. You wonder why so many people are depressed, how many people are out of work. The Rust Belt, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin. I mean, even states like New Hampshire are suffering from these drugs. So that's why the president mentions this when it comes to the southern border policy. But then he also threw in the kickers, which don't get a lot of hype, which don't get a lot of coverage, and that has to do with human trafficking and sex trafficking. And of course, one of the reasons why we focus on this, again, because it is news and it should not be happening in this country, is because the Democrats don't talk about it. Never do they even acknowledge the fact that there is human trafficking and sex trafficking that takes place in this country, and a lot of it comes from our southern border. Now, they want to cry foul and be holier than thou when it comes to parents and children being separated at the border, and that's a different discussion. But it's HHS, or Homeland Security, doing their job. I mean, nobody is forcing these parents, if they even are their parents. I mean, it's quite the cover, again, in the whole trade of human trafficking and sex trafficking for adults to have children posing as their parents and trying to get them across the border. So we don't even know the full story. Now, are there parents and families and children being separated? I'm sure there are. But the Democrats have bleeding hearts for these families and for these children here in these cases. But when it comes to the sex trafficking and human trafficking element of it, their silence is deafening. So that's another reason we bring it up, because it's not just the things that are discussed, it's what is not discussed. And that's really where the heart of the matter lies. Not only in this case, but in so many other things that we talk about, whether it's on this podcast pertaining to politics or whether it's on the economic podcast. We try to have a discussion, not of what is just being discussed in the news, but what is not being discussed in the news, because we live in a 24/7 world of the news cycle, and it's global. you have several billion people on this planet, and we hear the same few stories all day long. The same talking heads, the same pundits. They pass the baton to the next person in primetime television, and they talk about the same news stories, sometimes even with the same talking heads and quote-unquote analysts and experts. I mean, it's just the same thing over and over. It becomes propaganda. That's why I tell you guys, you can't listen and watch it all day long. I mean, unless there's truly breaking news, it's the same thing from the morning talk shows till 11 o'clock at night. It really is. It really is. So you got to read some other articles online. You got to look for some other sources. Hopefully the Capital News is one of your go-tos here. Yes, we talk about a lot of things that are taking place because they're important. They are important. But there's other things that are important too, like this NXIVM thing. It's getting some coverage, not a lot on the TV air, but at least there are some articles out there. So if you're interested in having a deeper dive into it, the information's on there. You can look for it. But I just wanted to bring that update to you. And if there should be some other further update with maybe her sentencing, again, that's Claire Bronfman of the Seagram Fortune. If there's some update regarding her sentence and what she's going to be serving, I'll bring that to you guys. Also, if there's any update in regards to Mr. Keith Raniere, the founder of NXIVM, what goes on either with his trial or whether he caves and strikes a deal with the prosecutors, I'll keep you updated on that. But there's a lot more going on, too. It's not just NXIVM. There's other stories out there. And it really is heartbreaking because it involves children, most of it, and it's just innocent people, and it's just a dark and evil business that unfortunately exists. And I think the president is trying to sort of slow walk the public, the American people, to what might be coming, because there's some names out here. I mean, these aren't small people in a back alley. These are well-off people. These are Hollywood stars. These are heiresses to billion-dollar fortunes. Okay, this isn't just, quote-unquote, your stereotypical scum of the earth. These are people who dress nice and have a nice smile. Okay, evil can disguise itself in many different ways. So don't be surprised if we have a lot more names coming out either regarding NXIVM or other things like it. Remember, the Bob Kraft incident down in Florida, the owner of the New England Patriots football team, what he was involved with. And now you have a whole bunch of other celebrities involved with the college scam out there, the Full House stars. I mean, this is what's going on. This is just a preparation for a lot of things that people look up to, all these celebrities, all these stars, all these people with wealth and money. It ain't that great. I mean, these are human beings. They have their flaws. Clearly, some are worse than others. But just be prepared that just because they dress nice and they put on a good show on television and they carry a nice smile doesn't mean they're great people. Now, moving forward with some political discussion, a couple of things I want to discuss has to deal with a follow-up with the Mueller report, but more specifically with Hillary Clinton, because she's back in the news. She was being interviewed today, and obviously the question came up regarding what she thought the Mueller report meant for the president. In regards to obstruction of justice, she said, well, I think anybody who would have acted the way that the president did, just from what we know, they would have been indicted. This is so rich, it's not even funny. This woman had the book thrown at her by Jim Comey, the former director of the FBI, on July 5th, 2016. Threw the book at her, A to Z. This woman is guilty. Wait 1 second here. Let me just read this bottom line here. Oh, yeah, not guilty. We're not even going to indict her. We're not going to do it because there's no reasonable prosecutor who would do it, would bring charges. Of course, this wasn't Jim Comey's responsibility to make that determination. It was prosecutors within the Department of Justice. But of course, the subject of the investigation, Hillary Rodham Clinton, her husband, former President Bill Clinton, happened to meet, just by coincidence, on a tarmac with former Attorney General Loretta Lynch. And then lo and behold, just very shortly thereafter, no, we're not going to press charges, nothing. And if we go even back further, when we looked at our previous podcast regarding Lisa Page, the former attorney within the FBI, well, they knew long ago, even before that tarmac incident, that they weren't going to move forward with charging the Secretary of State, Hillary Rodham Clinton. Now, remember, folks, she deleted 33,000 emails after receiving a subpoena. She and her company, her close friends, her close allies here, physically destroyed BlackBerries with hammers. They used BleachBit to destroy those 33,000 emails, if not more. Okay, I mean, she doesn't think that was obstructing justice. But what President Trump did, there was no crime there either. There was no collusion. There was no conspiracy. There was a crime with what Hillary Clinton did. She had a private email server in her home in New York, in her bathroom. That wasn't allowed. No problem, evidently. Two-tier justice system. She goes out there in public, gives an interview. Oh, yeah, anybody else, I think they would have been indicted. Do you now, Hillary? What about you? Oh, no, I mean, we just cleaned it. You mean like with a rag, with a cloth? We just wiped it? I mean, how stupid does she think the American people are? Evidently, we are, because she's still out there giving public interviews. She's the queen. Not for the day, forever. I mean, she gets to do whatever she wants. You can't make this stuff up. She was guilty of all of this, and I'm telling you, I think that there's more to it, a lot more to it. Because, well, while the FBI couldn't say for sure if her server had been compromised or hacked into, I go one step further and saying, well, if she had set up that server for a couple of reasons. One, because she knew if all of that information was housed within the State Department servers, that all of that information would be subject to FOIA, Freedom of Information Act requests. And, there might be some things in there that she doesn't want out. Okay? So she bypassed that process by putting a separate server, a personal server, in her house in New York. All right? But again, I go a step further and say she may have done that not just to sidestep FOIA, which is a shame and a crime in and of itself, but because she was giving somebody access to all of those emails and all of the information that she was housing on that server. Was she selling the information to the highest bidder? I mean, it's not going to be hacked if you're giving somebody permission to go in there, right? So how would the FBI or anybody else looking at it ever know the difference? If somebody has a password or is granted access? Interesting question, isn't it? I think that's what ultimately happened. Because not only that, but I think this has to do with a lot of Clinton Foundation stuff. And if you know from previous podcasts where we talked about the Clinton Foundation investigation, and again, that's something that did not receive a lot of media attention. Because you had financial investigators, external whistleblowers, not internal whistleblowers, but external whistleblowers, who make a living investigating charitable organizations to make sure that Uncle Sam is not getting ripped off by people who claim that they are charity and should be a tax-exempt organization, and say, whoa, wait a minute, these numbers look a little fishy. Well, the Clinton Foundation's numbers looked extremely fishy because these guys only make money if the IRS and the federal government pursues these organizations and wins in court. So they're out of pocket all of these dollars, all of this money that takes a lot of time. They have to file FOIA requests sometimes if their information is not all public. And then they have to go through all of that information, dissect it, analyze it, and then make a conclusion and then submit it to the government, the IRS, the FBI, whoever needs to see the information, and then the government has to act on it. So given the size and scope of the Clinton Foundation, I mean, that was a lot of work. So where do we stand with that? We still don't know. We still don't know. That was late last year that they gave their testimony before Congress. Again, that wasn't a three-ring circus. C-SPAN was there because they're always there. But it was not a packed house by any stretch of the imagination. Again, you can find it on YouTube. Go look it up, the Clinton Foundation investigation. I think, what were their names, if I remember? Mr. Doyle and Mr. Moynihan. Go find them on YouTube. Watch it. It's only like an hour long, and it's a very, very interesting and telling testimony. Where are we with it? We have no idea. We have no idea. But this woman, Hillary Rodham Clinton, is allowed to continue to give interviews as if nothing happened. She destroys 33,000 emails after subpoena. Why? Well, they had to deal with Yoga and her daughter Chelsea, her wedding. Bull. If you believe that, you need help. In fact, you're probably beyond help if you actually believe that. If President Trump had done that, that would be the end of him. That would be it. I mean, even Republicans would be really concerned with that aspect of it. Remember, folks, President Trump didn't assert executive privilege. We wouldn't even know about this other Volume 2 with obstruction of justice, a lot of this, because a lot of those details that came out had to deal with executive members, people who were working for the president, who were in the White House. He could have looked at it and said, no, we're asserting executive privilege. No, this isn't going to see the light of day. It wasn't the case. It wasn't the case, because you have to remember, where's the focus now? It's not on the collusion and the conspiracy. That's gone. Nobody's even really talking about that. They're all talking about obstruction of justice. They're trying to hang their hat now on obstruction of justice. Again, this was the gift that Bob Mueller gave to the Democrats and to the mainstream media so they can keep this narrative pumping, what's going to be at least through the spring and summer. Again, the only way that this is going to stop is if and when the president declassifies the FISA information, what kickstarted everything. Again, going back to Attorney General Bill Barr in his comments that saying, yeah, spying on a presidential campaign is serious business. So basically, we're going to kick off an investigation to investigate the investigators. Amen. It's about time, but this has to hurry up. It has to, because this isn't going to happen overnight. I'm very much of the mindset that there have been investigations going on, and that there are investigations going on. You have U.S. Attorney out of Utah, John Huber, who is supposedly looking into the Clinton Investigation Foundation, all of that stuff. And you have a whole host of other things that he is supposedly looking into. Of course, everything's been hush-hush, which is how it's supposed to be. There aren't supposed to be leaks. So hopefully no news is good news, but time will tell. We also have the Office of Inspector General's reports coming out. There's supposed to be a couple of those. Again, those can't come out soon enough. Hopefully those drop some names, and a lot of people are held accountable, that there's criminal referrals made. We already know that Republican Congressman Devin Nunes has made some referrals for criminal prosecution. We can guess at who the names are. It's the same ones we always talk about here, whether it's Jim Comey, Andrew McCabe, Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, other people within the FBI and the DOJ. And again, this goes all the way back to President Obama. This goes all the way up to President Obama. We know this from the Lisa Page testimony. She made it clear that President Obama wanted to be kept in the loop with everything that was going on regarding the Russia investigation into the Trump campaign. He wanted to be kept in the loop of everything. He knows these are his highest people around him making these decisions, keeping him aware, in the loop of what's going on. You think he didn't order some of these things? Because we had an interesting podcast the other day when it was a refresher of John Brennan and James Clapper and how they were trying to get Admiral Mike Rogers, the former head of the NSA, booted because he went to Trump Tower when it was President-elect Trump and said, look, you're being listened into. Now, again, we don't have direct evidence that that was the case, but we have evidence that after that meeting between Admiral Mike Rogers of the NSA and President-elect Trump in Trump Tower in New York, that President-elect Trump moved his headquarters from Trump Tower over to his golf course in Bedminster, New Jersey. So connect the dots. And then Trump is out there tweeting and saying, I've been bugged. They've been listening into me. And everybody said, oh, this old man's a quack. He's a Looney Tune. We told you. And then it comes out that, yeah, there was some stuff going on. Can't make it up, folks. Cannot make it up. But you're not supposed to look there. You're not supposed to understand the truth. You're just supposed to listen to what the government says, to what the Democrats say, that they're going to impeach, investigate, everything from head to toe, everything the man's ever done for the past 40 years of his life. There's no end in sight unless and until the president does this. And I am asking this president to release this information as soon as possible for the sake of this country. This is dividing the country. If he has the Trump card, if he has the truth, it needs to come out. It has to. But we're going to keep you guys updated on this stuff. We're all in the dark here. That's just where we are. We know the three-ring circus is in town, and it ain't leaving anytime soon. We're hopeful that there is investigations underway, but time's going to tell. If it's being done properly, information's not going to leak. So hopefully no news is good news. But all I can say here is time will tell, and we will see what happens. Now, moving on to some other things within the 2020 campaign. This is interesting, at least to me. Bernie Sanders, Crazy Bernie, and Kamala Harris are out there. And now, we have to have a conversation regarding inmates and their rights to vote. Not people who have served their time and are now back on the street, but people who are behind bars. Well, Crazy Bernie thinks they should be able to vote. Kamala Harris thinks we need to have a conversation. Do you think we need to have a conversation about that? I don't. When you're in jail, you lose your rights. That's how it works. I mean, I'm at a loss for words here. What else can you say? This is like having a debate between capitalism and socialism. It's like it's done. It's just done. It just makes so much sense. Capitalism wins. You commit a crime, you're behind bars, you don't get to vote. Your rights are taken away from you. That's why you're in jail. That's the problem. That's the process. What don't you understand? Evidently, I think maybe, just maybe, Crazy Bernie and Kamala are like, well, you know what? If the Trump administration does investigate the investigators, there's going to be a lot of Democrats getting locked up. And I mean, those are only going to be the people who are going to vote for us. So yeah, they're going to have to vote for us. Obviously, it's tongue in cheek, but I mean, what is their mindset? It's inmates. It's 16-year-olds. Remember that discussion? They want 16-year-olds to vote. Now, of course, this isn't going to take place prior to the 2020 election, but the fact that they're even having this conversation, I mean, are they serious? Are you serious? Now, it's one thing if you commit a crime, you do your time, and you're back out in public. I don't have a problem with you being able to vote. You did your time. That was the punishment. That's what the system said. Now, you might be able to argue, well, maybe it wasn't a just sentencing, but that's another story. They did serve their time. They're back out in public. They want to vote. They should have the right to vote. The only exception would be if somebody was involved with voter fraud or something relating to that, and that's why they were imprisoned. Same thing like if you see somebody who might have committed some sort of financial fraud and they were in the financial industry, they were a money manager or something like that, they get caught, they go to jail. Also part of their sentence, they are banned from working in that industry for life. So I can understand that. If there was a criminal who did something regarding voting, maybe it was voter fraud or rigging an election or something like that, that they are not allowed to vote after they serve their time, that's understandable to me. But anything else, you served your time. Now you're allowed to vote. But these lunatics want their votes behind bars. I mean, I guess we shouldn't be surprised. They're all trying to outdo one another. And the Democrats have a lot of dead people voting for them. So what's the problem with somebody behind bars voting for them? What's the problem with a 16-year-old voting? They don't know how to drive. They don't pay bills. Most of them probably don't even have a job. But yeah, they can go out and they can make this decision as to who's going to lead the free world. I mean, makes no sense. But then that would be par for the course for the 2020 candidates on the Democrat side. And we are supposed to have crazy Uncle Joe Biden joining the race this Thursday. He's supposed to make an announcement. I think it's going to be a video announcement. Stick to the script. Stick to the script. I know it's very difficult for you to do that, but do your best because you didn't take my advice. You didn't go back to Delaware to take a nap. You're coming out, I guess, on Thursday via video, and then I think he's going to have some sort of rally, perhaps in Pittsburgh at some union hall because, of course, he's the working man. It's people, he's the man of the working man and the blue-collar Joe. So we'll see what he does. I think his candidacy is dead in the water, too. I think he's basically a sitting duck. He's a dead duck, really, before it even started because of all of the allegations that are coming out and how he has been, touching people throughout his career and some of the things that he says. But, I mean, this is just going to give President Trump another target, an extremely easy target to destroy, and he's going to destroy him. I mean, Joe Biden has name recognition, but he's an old white guy. He's an old white guy, and he doesn't, I don't think he has the base like Crazy Bernie does. I just don't think he does. But we're up to 20-some people now once Crazy Joe gets into this campaign, and it's going to get nasty because they're going to try to one up each other, which is already in the process, and we are very early on in the 2020 campaign. That's going to continue, and it's going to get nasty. Believe you me, and it will get very, very personal because these people are hungry for power. Some of them are in the fold for the first time. Some of them, this is, their second or third dance. They're power hungry. It's, you don't become the president of the United States by being Mr. Nice Guy. So buckle up. It's going to get very, very interesting. Thank you so much for joining me today, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure having you as always. Please like, share, subscribe, get the word out. Leave your comments. We would love to hear from you. This is the Capitol News. I am Alex Koritis. Godspeed.